Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. This time we're going to continue with the top 5 of choices in the 9th age, and we will be focusing on swarms. So swarms used to be a unit type, and now it's mostly characterized by the fact that something is either infantry or beasts at standard size, and it has 4 hit points or more. So let's get started in the list. My number 5 pick for this is going to be the Vermin Swarm Rat Swarm. The name of the swarm here is also Rat Swarm, so that is quite indicative of it being a swarm. So what do the Vermin Swarm Rat Swarms give you? You have quite a mobile chassis with an advance of 6 and a march of 12. Discipline of 7, which is not too good, but you're fearless, so you don't really care about it, and you're unstable. So it's only for the march checks, I think, that you have to use this. You have 5 hit points, which is, well, swarm territory. You have defensive 3, which is just average. Resilience 2, which is really low, but then again, swarms are generally characterized by having a low resilience. Don't have any armor, same for swarms. You have hard target 1. So if someone is shooting at you, they're gonna struggle a little bit. And offensively, you have 5 attacks, offensive 3, strength 2, AP 0, and agility 4. So offensively, these guys, you do have 5 attacks each, but then again, you only get 1 supporting attack if you're running big units of this. So big units don't really benefit a lot. I think at most you're gonna run them 3 wide, maybe 4 wide. 3 wide gets you 15 attacks, 4 wide 20 attacks, but any supporting attacks are really gonna not contribute too much to the unit. So they are usually mostly used as just chaff pieces to clog up your enemy's lines, or go in places where you don't want your enemy to go. And they work in a bit of a funny way, because they work in a different way than most troops in the 9th age, in the fact that they just provide a lot of hit points for the points that you pay usually. So in this case you get 10 hit points for 90 points, which is quite decent. There's infantry units that provide you more hit points per point. However, with an advance of 6 and march of 12, that is quite mobile. Combined with the fact that there's skirmisher and light troops, you have a really mobile hit pool point sink. And they are unstable, so they are going to reliably stick around for 1 round at least. Now the Vermin Swarm Rat Swarm, they have the tiny special rule, so you ignore friendly units when moving in the charge and movement phase. This is really nice. It's practically flying, however you don't ignore enemy units, so basically you can fly through your own lines, and that is really useful in the Vermin Swarm army. Then for the number 4 pick, it's going to be the Vampire Covenant Bat Swarm. This is really similar to the Rat Swarm of the Vermin Swarm. However, this time it's a Bat Swarm, so that means that it does fly. It has the same mobility more or less, unless the enemy has an item that doesn't allow you to use your fly move. So you have a fly of 6 and a march of 12. You have discipline of 3 only, so that is really rubbish. So if you want to march with these guys, you better be close to your general or something else that allows you to march in the undead armies. They suffer from ashes to ashes, as do all Vampire Covenant models, which is that if the general dies, then they're going to crumble down. You have fearless, you also have light troops, you also have skirmisher, and these guys, they have storm of wings instead of the tiny rule that the rat swarms had. They are 20 points more expensive as a starting cost, however I think it's worth it. You only have 4 hit points, you still have the same defensive of 3, you still have the same resilience of 2, and you still don't have any armor. And offensively they also have an attack less. So what is it that makes the bat swarms better? First of all, they have distracting, so that the enemy hits them less easily. And also you have Storm of Wings, so that enemy units in base contact suffer -1 offensive and defensive skill. This is something that you can use in combination with your skeletons or any other troop, just to corner charge in some bat swarms, so that the enemy gets -1 offensive and defensive. However, it also means that they themselves benefit from this. So effectively, they have offensive and defensive 4 rather than 3. And I think this makes sometimes it's going to make a really big difference on the swarms. In this fact that they're going to be able to stick around for a bit longer. And then the Vampire Swarm, the Vampire Covenant army works in a way that you can reanimate your troops. So you have for each choice a reanimation value, and these guys have d6 plus 4 for this. So every time they are successfully targeted by the Arise spell, you get d6 plus 4 Bat Swarm hit points back. And that is quite substantial. It's the same amount as you get skeletons back. So that really goes rather quickly at some point. Then my number 3 pick is going to be the Mage Blight Gremlins from the Demon Legion book. So these guys, they are a little bit less mobile than the previous choices with only Advance 5 and March of 10. They do share the hit points with the Bat Swarms with only 4 hit points, Defensive 3 once again, Resilience 3, so a bit more tough, Aegis 5 up, which is a big one, and then Hard Target 1. And offensively, they have 5 attacks, Offensive 3, Strength 2, Agility 2. However, these guys do have poison attacks, so their strength is going to matter a little bit less. They might even sneak in some wounds from time to time. But where the Mage Blight Gremlins really shine is the fact that they have Supernal, for one, so that's the demon special rule. That if you manage to make your break test, you don't suffer any wounds from combat red. And the big one here is going to be the combination of Veilstalker and Spellcraving. So I haven't really used Mage Blight Gremlins myself a lot, but I believe that the Veilstalker rule is mostly the rule why you take them, and also mostly the rule why they're suddenly 175 points rather than the roughly 100 points that the other choices were. So Veilstalker, what does it do? You follow the rules for ambush with the following exceptions. When a unit arrives, the owner may choose to place it within 6 inches of an enemy model with channel. So not even a wizard, not a magic user, not something with a lore associated with it, but just any model with channel. So this can be just a random BSB that has Talisman of the Void even. And this makes them really flexible, so you ambush it and then you place it within 6 inches of the enemy model with channel. The unit has to be within 6 inches, so one part of the unit has to be within 6 inches, not the whole unit. If you do, you cannot perform any advanced moves, it's movement phase. So you can still perform a reform, but that is your way on the board. You can get your models basically anywhere you want on the board. Either you're gonna hunt for the enemy spellcaster, or you're gonna make use of the fact that the opponent has channel in his list somewhere to give you chaff just pop up randomly in a place. And then the Spellcraving rule, you can make up to 3 supporting attacks with these guys, so even if you only have 4 models of them, you're gonna still be able to do a total of 16 attacks if you're too wide. And when determining combat score, a side with at least 1 model with Spellcraving adds plus X to its side's combat score, where X is the number of non-bound, non-attribute spells known by enemy wizards and units in base contact with it. So if you have a wizard master in contact with you, you're gonna automatically have plus 4 at least on your combat res. And that is a lot. It makes sure that your opponent's gonna lose the combat. It doesn't necessarily make sure that you break the enemy. However, if you do break the enemy, you're still a standard beast, so you do have Swift Stride, whilst a lot of wizard bunkers are still bunkers on foot. Yeah, I think it's a really cool choice in that respect, and I think that it can be really effective against the correct opponent. And also this Veilstalker and Spellcraving combination, it probably has some kind of effect on the table that you don't even see, so that your opponent might just change his angles of deployment a little bit, the way that he moves his unit, just to account for the fact that your Mage Blight Gremlins might show up just in a spot really close to his caster. You can get all kinds of different upgrades for this unit. I'm not really gonna go into these because I have no experience at all with Mage Blight Gremlins myself. So it would be a bit weird maybe to just to discuss all of these. For now, I would just leave it at the fact that I think that Mace Blight Gremlins are quite good. And if you play Demon Legions, I would certainly give them a look. Then the next choice, the number 2 spot, is going to be taken by the Orcs and Goblins Grottlings. Why the Grottlings? This once again a really cheap choice for 90 points for 3 models. In this case, you can get 3 additional models, 14 points per model, so that is ultra cheap even compared to the others. What do you get when you pay for Grottlings? They must be quite horrific if they're so cheap. So you do sacrifice your mobility with just an advance and march of 4 inches and 8 inches respectively. You do sacrifice 1 offensive and defensive skill compared to the Rat Swarms, for example. You have a lower agility. Basically, everything is kind of worse. However, you do get the bonus of having Scout and Vanguard, and you're still unstable and insignificant. And insignificant is quite a big thing in an Orc and Goblin army, because then you at least don't panic off your more valuable troops. So the combination of Scout and Vanguard, you can also see it back on Spider Riders, Scuttler Spiders, the Forest Goblins on the Spiders, and this makes you really mobile. So with Scout, you're gonna deploy either in terrain, so then I would only take 3 models in the unit, up to 12 inches away from the enemy, or up to 18 inches away, and then you can just deploy anywhere you want. And then with Vanguard, you're going to have a 12-inch move to move right up to the opponent, basically. But you cannot get within 6 inches, I believe, of units that Vanguarded, or within 12 inches, if I'm right, of units that haven't Vanguarded themselves. So it is a little bit of a rules construct that makes sure that basically you can just end up with your Grottlings anywhere on the board 12 inches away from the enemy. And that is I think one of their big strengths. So if you don't get the first turn, then maybe they're less valuable, because Scout and Vanguard are mostly powerful if you go for the first turn. So I would say that in an offensive list, these guys are kind of worth it nearly all the time, probably, just to be able to clog up some part of the field with like 30 wins. Yeah, I think they're a really good choice. I think they're a really cool choice, and I would definitely advise you to try them out if you're playing Orcs and Goblins. And then for me, the winner in this category is going to be the Vampire Covenant Phantom Hosts. And yeah, I've not seen a lot of people play them actually. But I am quite fond of them. I played them in a couple of lists of mine. I always played a unit of 2 models, however, because then you're still really maneuverable, and either they get a counter or they don't. And if they don't get a counter, they're amazing, and if they do get a counter, they're not that good. So, Vampire Covenant Phantom Hosts, what do they give you? They give you mostly an Aegis of 2 up against non-magical attacks. So anything that is non-magical is gonna only deal you 1/6 of the wound that they would normally do. And they have AP 1 with 4 attacks at strength 3, just offensive 3. So yeah, they don't have a very good damage output. However, I mean, they don't take a lot of damage themselves. They have 4 hit points each, so you have a total of 8 hit points. They're gonna last. They're gonna last forever if you don't have any magical attacks against them. And I have scared off more than I can imagine with these guys. Stuff like Stonehorns, even. I mean, they do get that Thunderstorm. They do get their attacks. However, like with 10 attacks, if they hit even with 5 attacks, and they wound with all of them, then you're gonna maybe get a wound. Then the Thunderstorm added to that, it's gonna be 3 or 4 hits normally. You might still get a wound from that. So in total, like even against a Stonehorn, you'll probably only like take 1 wound. And then back, you're gonna still do 6 attack or 8 attacks in total with 2 bases. 6 is to wound, but you have AP1, so there is still a slight chance that you will do a wound back even, and then it's gonna be a draw. It's utterly insane in that respect. So yeah, I've thrown these into matchups where my enemy really couldn't handle them. just 2 units in your army. And I think there's a really good reason for why you can only have 2 units of these. And I think they're just really good. If you manage to play it out so that your opponent doesn't have any magical attacks where they are. If your opponent does have magical attacks, you're still going to have your Aegis of 5 up, so they're not going to be that much worse than Mage Blight Gremlins. However, they do miss out on the poison, they do miss out on the extra attack, but they do go up also to strength 3 and AP 1 instead of strength 2, AP 0. Yeah, and then the ghostly form is still that you can move through all kinds of terrain and everything. And that ashes to ashes means that if you lose combat, you're just going to lose a couple of wounds. You can still reanimate these. It's not as efficient as with the bat swarms. But if you're gonna really invest into bumping these up again, then something's gonna go wrong anyway. Yeah, I think they're a really good choice. I would advise to take 1 unit, maybe 2 units, not more, because then you're gonna run into the trouble that your opponent does have some magic weapons where you are picking your battles. And I guess maybe some people are really intrigued by the march of 12 inches and that you should really make use of that. I also played battles where I just had them out deploy on the far flank because there's no magical weapons generally on the flank, and then you just go 6 inches the first turn. You're still in the range where you threaten the opponent's army, and your opponent still has to account for them. I mean, then the next turn, you're either going to advance 6 inches again, or you can declare a charge with 6, and then if you do a roll that fails, you're going to move up like 3 inches, 4 inches. Sure, it's not the 12 inches, but then the next turn you can try again a charge, and if you do make the charge on like a 10 or an 11 on 2 dice, it's something your opponent basically has to account for happening. It's a really fun way of putting pressure on your opponent with something that he cannot really counter, and they really go well then if they do get the March 12, for example, through a Dark Coach. So the Dark Coach and Phantom Host, they're really good buddies in 9th Age. With that, I think I've discussed all of the swarms that I think are really valuable in 9th Age. So I hope you liked the video, and I'll see you the next time.